Hey Banksy class. Okay, so we've got another story. This one is called Lightwing the Swallow. Remember I said swallows are tiny little birds? I'm sorry, pigeon just caught my eye there. He's not a tiny bird. Swallows are tiny little birds. And I couldn't remember if swallows or swifts are the ones with like the little fork tail, which I said about and then I haven't Googled, so maybe we'll Google it together at school. We'll be able to tell the difference. Or maybe we should do a little bit of bird watching. See if we can see them. I see them over my house all the time, so, and I don't live far from school, so we definitely see them over school as well. Anyway, Lightwing the Swallow. Lightwing came out of a white egg in a nest made of mud. He was very tiny indeed, and at first he could see nothing in the dark barn where his mother and father had built their nest. But very soon his eyes made out the high rafters above him and the beam on which his nest was put. He looked at a hole in the barn roof through which he could see the blue sky. It was summertime, so the sky was often blue. Lightwing crouched down in the nest with his brother and sister and waited impatiently for his mother and father to come with tidbits to eat. He was a funny little thing, rather bare, with very few feathers at first, but gradually they grew, and soon Lightwing and his brother and sisters were fluffy nestlings, sitting with ever open beaks, waiting for flies that their parents caught on the wing outside the big barn. See, again, informative stories. We now know what swallows eat. Lightwing was a swallow. He had a marvellous steel blue back and a white vest and a streak of chestnut red across his chest. His legs were small and his beak was wide in its gape. His wings were long and his tail was forked. Don't need to Google it. The story has just given us the information, you see? Love reading. He longed for the day to come when he might fly off with his father and mother. But when the day came, he was rather afraid. His brother flew out of the nest and through the door as if he'd been used to flying all of his short life. But Lightwing and his sister sat on the edge of the nest, trembling. Their mother suddenly flew behind them and tipped them off the nest. Lightwing fell. But as he fell, he opened his wings, and lo and behold, he could fly. His wings flashed through the barn door. He was up in the air and away, rejoicing to be in the clear, sunny blue sky. He learnt to catch flies on the wing with his mouth wide open. He learnt to skim the water and pick up the flies hovering over the surface. He knew that when rain was coming, the flies flew lower, and he followed them. When the weather was fine, the flies flew higher, and Lightwing soared below the clouds, following his food there. Then people said, "The swallows fly high, it will be fine," or "The swallows fly low, there will be rain." Lightwing grew strong and tireless as he flew throughout the warm summer days, but one night there was a chill in the air. Lightwing was surprised. He did not like it. "Winter's coming," sang the robin in his creamy voice. "What is winter?" cried Lightwing in his pretty twitter. "Is it something to eat?" One night a chill northwest wind began to blow. Lightwing felt restless. He wanted to fly somewhere, but he did not know where. He wanted to go where he could no longer feel the cold wind. He flew to the barn roof to ask his friends what to do. Hundreds of the swallows settled on the old red roof. They chatted and twittered restlessly. The wind blew behind them, and then, quite suddenly, a few swallows rose up into the air and flew southwards, with the chill wind behind them. In a few moments, all the waiting hundreds had risen too, and with one accord flew to the south. "Goodbye," called the robin. "Goodbye till the springtime." Lightwing called goodbye and flew with the others. Over land and over sea sped the swallows, as fast as the express train, to a warmer southern land, where flies were plentiful and the sun was hot. And there Lightwing is now. But when the spring comes again, he will return and maybe build his nest in your barn or mine. The end. That's a rather short story, but again, we know what swallows eat when they are young. We know what colour their egg is. We know the dynamics of their body, so we now know that they are the one with the forked tail, and we know that they fly south for the winter. They are a migrating bird. Lots of birds, like the robin, will stay in the UK all year round. It builds a thicker coat of feathers, and it's able to cope with cold winter. swallows can't. They migrate, they feed on the flies, and they need hot countries to have those flies. Because if you notice, we get lots of flies in the summertime, don't really get any flies in the winter time. And if they haven't got their flies here to eat to sustain their diet, then they could die. Anyway, nice little story, wasn't it? See, so informative. Anyway, it takes us to our next story. Sorry, so excited, choking on my own breath. This is called Where Shall We Nest? Nice little illustration there, but we don't know what bird it could be talking about this time. So join me next time for another short story.